Peter, Bill Buckley wrote God and Man at Yale in 1951, which is over 60 years ago now. And your book is perhaps the only example since Bill Buckley's of the kind of comprehensive study of one institution, one college, under a moral and intellectual microscope. So I have two questions for you. The first is, what has happened to God at Bowdoin?
Bowdoin was founded as a Congregationalist college. Early in the 20th century, it shifted to being an ecumenical Christian college. It retained required chapel as late as the mid-1960s. Mm-hmm. At that inflection point of 1969, it finally put to rest, I would say, any allegiance it had to Christian tradition, along with its allegiance to the notion of civilization. The disappearance of a formal attachment to Christianity still has a few rough edges. One of the most prominent and beautiful buildings on campus is a chapel. Mm-hmm. They can't quite make that building disappear.
And do students attend chapel?
No. There are students who are religiously faithful in various traditions and who attend church, but there is no official Bowdoin chapel to attend.
But do members of students attend the church of their choice or the synagogue?
Right. We don't have hard numbers on that, but the numbers appear to be derisively small. Mm-hmm. There's a Bowdoin Christian Fellowship, and there's a group of Catholic students, a small number of religiously observant Jewish students. There is some effort on the part of the college to recognize that religion exists, but it is heavily psychologized, and it is...
Are you talking about the courses on religion?
Well, there are courses on religion. That's one of those oddities that there are survey courses on Islam and Hinduism, no survey course on Christianity, though there is an upper-level course on Christianity. There have been religious authority figures on campus in the form of people who are there to serve not at the behest of the college, but on their own particular groups of students. So religion isn't totally absent. It plays an important role in the lives of a minority of mm-hmm. students, mm-hmm. but it has no official presence, and it is, I would say, hostile territory for anyone of traditional religious beliefs. If you're there as a Wiccan, a neo-pagan, it's a pretty hospitable environment for the New Age and for the religiously liberal whose commitment to a particular faith tradition is already closely married to the ideas of diversity and sustainability.
My second question is, what is to be done? Buckley famously in God and Man at Yale proposed that the alumni inspirit the trustees who should exercise their legal power over the college to restore God and man in their full moral and intellectual dimensions to the campus and to the curriculum. That solution, to my knowledge, has never worked and has hardly been tried. Maybe at Dartmouth there was a small success in organizing alumni to put pressure on the college, but I'm not sure that in the end it came to very much. Do you have a solution to the problems that you have so well diagnosed in this report?
Well, we have a recommendation, and only one in the report itself, and that is that Bowdoin should appoint a commission to examine the issues that we put forward. We think we've gathered enough evidence that there's a prima facie case here that there should be some willingness on the part of an institution dedicated to the life of mind, in principle, to examine these matters and see how cogent they truly are. That's a modest recommendation, and it's not expecting the college to revolutionize itself. Now, I can back away from the report in speaking separately on these matters. One can look at history and come upon a figure such as Roger Howell, who truly revolutionized the college. So it's not in principle impossible for a college to engage in some more sweeping reform of itself. I do not see any basis at Bowdoin right now for doing that. President.
But he was innovating in the spirit of the times, with the grain of the times. You're talking about something much more difficult.
Right.
Against the grain.
Against the grain right now, but there is an emerging context that could give force to this within a decade or so. We face something that is usually called the higher education bubble. There is a transformation taking place in American higher education that has to do with soaring costs, declining quality standards, the rise of competition from various forms of online education. Now, Bowdoin is quite insulated from that. It's a wealthy place and it operates at the very highest levels of the prestige ladder. But if the entire context of American higher education begins to change, as it did in the 1960s, there is, of course, an opening here for people to say, we want to do something different at Bowdoin. Will that ever happen? Well, it depends on the alumni. It depends on what happens with student enrollments and investments and things like that. So I don't, in my more optimistic moments, rule out the possibility that somewhere down the road, Bowdoin is going to take hold of itself and say, we're missing something. And I think that there is an important role here for Claremont, among other things, but which is that what we truly need is a summons back to some basic principles. This is not the kind of situation where complaints about specific things are going to make much difference. They could add a course on Edmund Spencer. They could do away with speak about it as a play. But for truly,
or at least get a better play.
And get a better play. The deep issue here has to do with this loss of focus on what's important and understanding the abiding principles. Just because we're ignoring those abiding principles,
Founding new colleges that are explicitly dedicated to the kind of education that you and I would endorse.
I think founding good new colleges is a great idea. I spoke to the founder of a new college in Savannah, Georgia, called Ralston College recently. It sounds to me like there is an appetite for these, and with the right sorts of philanthropic help, they may get off the ground. But founding a new college is an expensive undertaking. I spent a few years as provost of the King's College in New York City, which is essentially a new college, a revival of one that had closed. And so I have some idea of the bureaucratic hurdles, the efforts of the establishment to crowd out new players, and the sheer expense of it. But
right, there are a lot of barriers to entry, including accreditation now, which there didn't used to be in the kind of comprehensive and intrusive way that colleges now face.
So those barriers can, in principle, be overcome. It's probably easier to found a new college than to conceive of trying to take back any of the colleges in Bowdoin's set of the world that have so firmly planted themselves where they are. They have so the incrustations of choices already made, an existing curriculum, a faculty that's wedded to that curriculum.
Do we need professors of conservative studies?
No, I don't believe that that's a good answer at all. That would lead very quickly to a kind of tokenism. Oh, we have our conservative, he's over there as our professor of conservative studies. I'm not even sure there is such a thing as conservative studies. There is a great tradition, there is civilization, there is culture in the Arnold sense of the idea, and either we care about those things and nurture them, or...
Well, zoologically there might be.
Right. Yes.
Of the peculiar studies of the peculiar species conservative.
Yeah. Well, there are academics like Neil Gross, who specializes in studying the political divisions of left and right, and treats conservative academics as a sort of exotic bug that can be fit into the taxonomy in a particular play.
Towards the end, I think maybe at the end of Tom Klingenstein's original essay in the Claremont Review that got this ball rolling, he says, for the sake of America and the liberal arts, elite colleges need to reform themselves. And that's really what you're calling for from Bowdoin. And I hope very much it's what Bowdoin will supply in response to this very painstaking and serious critique. Thank you.
Thank you.